Happy Halloween, everybody. I bet you all are celebrating this spooky time of year by watching a scary horror movie to give you the heebie-jeebies. Or if you're very sensitive to blood and gore, chances are you're probably watching Nightmare Before Christmas. While people are still debating whether it's more of a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie, you can't deny the impact that this movie has on today's pop culture. Seriously, have you seen the merch at Hot Topic? While I do enjoy this movie as much as everyone else does, I still have to admit that this movie has gotten a little bit overhyped over the years. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a good movie and it's worth checking out, but aside from Hocus Pocus, this movie just seems to be overplayed every single year, and sometimes you just get sick of it. But if you're like me and want to check out a different horror movie made by the same director, then chances are you would probably enjoy Henry Selick's second horror-themed movie, Coraline. Seriously, how come this movie never caught on to the same status of Nightmare Before Christmas? It has a creepy atmosphere, a colorful cast of characters, and a story that will definitely scare the pants off of any little kid. But for some reason or another, this movie never gets talked about as much as Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to argue that Henry Selick's other animated movies don't get that much attention, but here's the thing. I still know a lot of people who talk about James and the Giant Peach more than Coraline, solely because the movie left a huge impact on them since childhood. And as far as Monkey Bone goes,
I left my phone number in your undies.
yeah, that one's better left forgotten. But I know what you're all thinking. How well did Henry Selick adapt Neil Gaiman's story to the big screen? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. But before we get started, I will let you all know that this is all opinion based, so if you prefer the movie over the book, or the book over the movie, or vice versa, that's all fine and good. Just make sure to keep the comment section civilized.
Zip it!
So, with that being said, let's get ready to rumble! In this corner, written in 2002 by Neil Gaiman, Coraline! And in this corner, released in 2009 by Laika Studios, Coraline! So let's start this off with the main key component that makes up any given story, the characters. Let me start off by saying that the animation format that was chosen for this movie was downright perfect when it came to telling a story like this. Mainly because the characters in the book are so cartoony and weird that presenting them in live action form would not fit as well as it would with animation. Not to say that it could be done or anything, but it would have been so awkward if they would have gone with the live action movie route. Now, just like how Ray Harryhausen animates his stop motion creature effects, the animation team over at Laika Studios decided to give these characters a little bit of a personality that's almost a splitting image of the ones in the book. From Miss Fink and Miss Forcible's over-the-top mannerisms, to the impractical stunts done by the rats, all the way down to the outlandishly impossible acrobatics done by Mr. Bobo.
And I am the amazing Bobinski.
Or the amazing Bobinski, as he calls himself. Yeah, I'm not sure why they made that change from the book to the movie, but chances are they probably don't want to associate them with one of the villains from Mystery Science Theater. However, if there was one character that would have translated perfectly to live action form, it would have to be the main character herself. While the book's version of Coraline does have a little bit of a personality, I feel like Neil Gaiman downplayed her character to a certain degree, almost to the point of being a little bland at times. However, the movie version of Coraline is more bouncy and expressive, and I feel like this is a welcoming change to the book since the rest of the supporting cast are so eccentric enough to where if they had made Coraline like the book, she would stick out like a sore thumb. However, what isn't a welcoming change from the book is an exclusive character made for the movie that I personally don't care for. And that said character is Wybie. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this character either. It seems like a lot of people agree with me on this point. While he can be useful at times, most of Wybie's existence really wasn't needed. Now sure, there are some moments where Wybie would spew out some important exposition, but couldn't that be done by another character? For example, how about the cat? He seems to know more about the other world beside anyone else in the movie, so why not him? In fact, in the book, the cat was sort of the backbone of the exposition aside from Coraline's thoughts. So you would probably think that this would be the character to use in the movie to spew out exposition like this, right? Nope. Let's just throw in an obnoxious character who's only used in the movie as Coraline's personal punching bag. The point I'm trying to get across is that there are other ways that this could have been handled and a lot better, and yet Henry Selick has stated numerous times that without Wybie, Coraline would just be wandering around talking to herself instead interacting with anyone else. However, this argument doesn't hold any water considering that she mostly wanders around the Pink Palace and talks to herself. Yeah, kind of defeats the purpose now, does it? But regardless of my distaste towards Wybie, I'm gonna give this one to the movie version. Say what you want about his inclusion in the movie, but what matters is that the main character is more interesting than the book's version, and that is the important thing in my book. No pun intended. So, point goes to the movie version.
Movie wins. Fatality.
But what's a main character without an evil antagonist to go up against? Let's go to round 2, where we talk about the villain. Both versions of the other mother seem pretty accurate from one another except for a couple of key differences. At the start of Coraline's journey, we're introduced to the other mother as we see that she's an exact copy of the real mother, but with buttons for eyes. It isn't until Coraline rejects her offer of sewing buttons into her eyes when she turns into her true form.
1, 2, 3! What are you doing?
However, the book version of the other mother always had this form from the beginning to the very end, and rightfully so, Coraline begins to act a little suspicious throughout her stay in the other world. Personally, if I was in her shoes, I would be getting the heck out of there as quickly as possible. Yeah, that seems to be the biggest issue I have with the book's version of the other mother that the movie easily improved upon. The other mother is so unapproachable to the point where you wonder why Coraline even trusts her at all. At least the movie's version made herself pleasant enough to make Coraline let her guard down, but the book's version doesn't even attempt to disguise herself to lure Coraline into her trap. Also, I love the creative choice of the other mother going from an innocent looking character with buttons for eyes to a giant spire-like creature, which could metaphorically symbolize her capturing the souls of children the same way spiders are able to catch flies. Though, something tells me that Henry Selick was very inspired by a certain Stephen King novel. I mean, a little kid in a yellow raincoat gets dragged down to an unknown world by a spire-like creature. Now, where have I heard of that one before? I should know what it is, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Chances are he probably took some inspiration from Cujo. But appearances aside, both of them act very similar to one another. They're both conniving, manipulative, and are able to play on the main character's emotions like a violin. But if I had to choose which version of the other mother I like the best, I would have to go with the movie's version. Sure, the book's version is okay, but the movie does a better job establishing her as a cunning villain to go up against. So yeah, point goes to the movie version.
Movie wins. Fatality.
But it all comes down to one burning question. Which one told the better story? The author behind Stardust, or the director behind James and the Giant Peach? Let's go to the final round where we talk about the story. Both versions tell the same story, beat by beat, with a few key differences here and there. We already established that YB is made exclusively for the movie, but his inclusion comes with a few more interesting additions. Right from the beginning, YB explains that his grandmother owns the Pink Palace despite the building's notorious reputation for children gone missing. It isn't until the third act of the movie when YB reveals that his grandmother is related to one of the ghost children, which is why she chose to hold on to the Pink Palace all these years ago. I think this is a really cool concept, but the only downside is that it's so tacked on and not as developed as much as it should have been. I would love to see Coraline interact with the grandmother and possibly get some more information about her sister's disappearance. But the movie never does that, and instead she only gets a few seconds of screen time at the very last minute. What a wasted opportunity. There's also the doll that YB gave to her, which is partially in placement of the rats that the other mother uses to spy on Coraline. Now I will give credit where credit is due. The beginning scene where the other mother creates a mini version of Coraline is creepy and satisfying at the same time. Think of it like the refurbishing scene from Toy Story 2 if it was designed by Tim Burton. But aside from giving us some visual eye candy, what was the purpose of the doll to begin with? The other mother was just fine using rats to spy on Coraline, so what's even the point of using the doll in the first place? Who knows. But hey, I could say this much about the doll. At least it makes a cute little collectible for my nightstand. Aside from these additions alone, not that much is different between the two mediums. Now sure, I could nitpick all the small details like the talking dogs in the book or the other father's redemption arc in the movie, but those things are just very irrelevant to how it affects the story overall. However, if there was one complaint I have about the book while reading it, it would have to be the pacing of the story. No offense to Neil Gaiman as a storyteller, but if you watch the movie and read the book back to back, you can't help but notice that the book's story structure felt incredibly rushed, especially when comparing to the movie version. Now, for those who read the book, you will immediately know what I'm talking about, but for those who didn't, let me give you a quick synopsis of the book's story structure. Coraline moves into the house and meets her neighbor. She receives the peeking stone early on by Miss Fink and Miss Forcible rather than the third act like in the movie. She then discovers the passageway to the other world and visits there for one night only. And then when she does get creeped out by the other mother's proposal and runs away, she finds out that her parents are kidnapped, which prompts her to go back to confront the other mother and blah 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 blah. You get the picture from there. The movie makes the wiser decision by separating that one visit to the other world into 3 parts, while also sprinkling in some events that happened in the first few chapters of the book. Not only is it a nice compare and contrast between the other world and her reality, but the scenes where she interacts with the supporting characters fit perfectly well as a way of foreshadowing the other mother's evil plans. And because the movie knows how to pace the story well and put certain events in the right order, that means that the movie is the clear winner of this books versus films debate. So that was my books versus films review of Coraline. And despite the movie winning over the book, is the book really worth checking out? Well, it is Neil Gaiman, so yeah, it is pretty much worth it. Neil Gaiman is a mastermind when it comes to his craft. Not only does he have a morbid and imaginative mind, but he really is good at describing every little detail to where the reader can interpret the visuals in any way they choose. And that's why I see in Henry Selick's movie version of the short novella, another interpretation. I know both versions have their own sets of pros and cons, but for my preference, I have to go with the movie version for the reasons mentioned earlier. But regardless which medium you choose, you're still in for a fun and spooky thrill ride this Halloween season. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Anyway guys, thank you all for watching, have a safe and happy Halloween, and I will see you next time. Take care.